Coming up next, let us welcome Mr. Terence WEE, Director for Cyber at KPMG Services, to share with us about his presentation on the Cyber Range for Education. Mr. WEE, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Terence. I hope I'm coming okay. This is my first time doing a presentation in this manner. So I'm here to talk to you about KPMG Cyber Range for Education. As been shared, I am the director in charge of training services in KPMG, primarily for cybersecurity related topics. And so I'm also the person, the technical architect that designed the KPMG Cyber Range. And it is the first cyber range here for KPMG in the world. So let me just share with you about how we use the cyber range. And I also understand that this may be the first time some of you may hear the term cyber range. So I've prepared a little video for us to get familiar with the cyber range, right? So what is a cyber range? And I'm sure some of us that belong to a particular genre would remember this particular show. It's one of my favorite shows. And I also happen to feel that it depicts what a cyber range is very, very aptly, right? In a very so-called non-threatening way. So let's watch a video for a short while. The video here will have two snippets. I will show you a quick 30-second snippet, and then I will move the video a little bit forward, and we'll watch for another 45 to 50 seconds snippet. Okay, and then I will share with you when I explain with you how the video represents what a cyber range really is. Okay, so here's the first snippet.
Combat training. Jiu-jitsu. I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu. Holy shit. Yeah, Mikey, I think he likes it. How about some more? Hell yes. Hell yeah.
Okay, so that's the first video snippet. I'm going to move on to before I move on to the next video snippet, I hope you guys saw that what has happened was that the main actor of the show, Neo, he was going through certain lesson plans and he was being uploaded with certain techniques on doing combat. In this case, is physical martial art combat, right? So let's move on to the second snippet here that I want to show everybody.
I know Kung Fu.
Show me. This is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of the Matrix. It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent. Others can be broken. Understand? Then hit me, if you can.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that is pretty much the second snippet of the video that I wanted to show you. I actually enjoy watching these snippets very, very much, and if I could and if time permitted, I would have loved to continue watching the video. But for those of you who also enjoy this show, perhaps you could go and rent the DVD or the movie, and you can also watch this show again. Okay, so the second snippet that I wanted that was being shown was that in one instance, the actor was in a ship and he had just learned a few techniques. And in the next scene, you see the two actors belonging or existing in a particular simulated environment, just like the instructor in black has mentioned, right? This is a simulated program that enforces similar rules of the matrix, right? Things like gravity, things like the air, and things like force, right? But rules have to be followed, and at the same time, certain rules can be broken. And that's the key thing that I want to share with you about the KPMG cyber range. Okay, so now let's get back to reality from the movie world. Okay, now that you know that the KPMG cyber range offers you the ability to provide a simulated environment for participants to come in and perform training. Essentially, the training that we can provide is broken up into two different types of training. First, let me just use my laser pointer here. First, on the left over here, we have the instructional type of cyber range training, where basically what we prepare would be lab sheets. We provide instructions whereby participants or trainees do step-by-step activities to learn what is being done. Right? Explanatory notes are given at each particular juncture, and certain formative questions have been prepared. Now, usually where formative questions and answers have been prepared, it would be preferable that there would be a facilitator in the room or in the session, and that questions can be prompted and answers can be solicited from the participants, right? So that the session is interactive, all right? And usually when something like that happens, the participant is interacting with a particular machine, just one computer, and usually the objective is to learn a particular technical skill or to understand a particular concept, a very small concept, all right, out of the larger idea or the larger context of the internet as well as cybersecurity. The second type of interaction that we have is actually real-time interactive sessions. All right, and real-time interactive sessions, the quickest and fastest way I could illustrate this to you would be how you saw the two actors sparring within a particular environment. Okay, so when such an interaction model is being provided to the training participants, what we typically do is we provide them with an overview or a background or a synopsis of the simulation environment that we've provided them. This typically comes in the form of lab sheets as well. We will provide them with keywords and tips for them to learn certain technical scripts so that they could pull the information that they need very quickly and that they could also make the assessment of what they need to do next. Okay. Now, such sessions are typically free form. Right, and what do I mean by free form? Free form means that there is no rule book. There is no set series of activities. You do not need to follow step 1 to step 10 or step 1 to step 50. Essentially, you perform an action, you get a response back from the system or the environment, and you then decide what you need to do next. Okay. Now, for such an interaction, we normally provide multiple virtual machines. Okay, so meaning you exist in a place whereby there are many computers and the computers each have their own respective functions, and typically this represents a corporate network whereby you have got multiple computers or servers and applications talking to one another, and we also represent the internet, right? So when we say we represent the internet, it is not the real internet, it is just another room or another part of the simulated network that potentially has got malicious activities happening and potentially could come into the simulated network. Okay, so moving on next. Next, we have, this is actually how an instructional lab sheet looks like, right? So over on the left, we give them a preamble of what they're going to be learning. An introduction on a particular topic. In this particular case, the topic is on remote exploiting. And the objective is clearly spelled out for them on what aspects of remote exploiting we would use. And in this particular case, the technical term is that we are using the SMB vulnerability, all right? Or if some of you may have heard the term Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue is a vulnerability that basically caused quite a havoc back in, if I'm not wrong, 2017 or so. Okay, and as you can notice, there is a series of activities. Step 1 going down here to step 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to 25. And if you take a brief overview of the lab sheet, you will notice that there'll be an instruction on what you need to do next. And in fact, what we also provide you is we provide the training participants the actual instruction set to key into the computer so that they could achieve a particular response, right? So this is really step by step. And we also generate out the expected output of what the participants would see so that they know that if they see something else on the screen, they may have done something wrong in the step before. They may have missed out a particular keyword, or they may have misspelled a particular number, right? Rather than 51, maybe they put in 52 over here, okay? And as we go along in this instructional lab sheet, what you would see is that we have got those bits here in red. The bits here in red are the formative questions. Now, why are they in red? So this particular lab sheet that we have I've shared with everybody is essentially the facilitator's version of the lab sheet, all right? And that the training participants generally get lab sheets with just a question. In this particular case, question number 30, with no responses written there. And it will be the facilitator's job to basically pause the training participants and say, and ask these questions, right? What does this output mean? What could it be? And then have a quick discussions with the participants so that a certain level of interactivity would prompt the training participant to perhaps flip back into the previous questions and try and understand what they have done. All right. These are our formative questions. Same goes for question number 37, where we have got more formative questions at the back. Now, over here, what you see is a screenshot or animation of what a training participant would typically do with a instructional lab session. So as you can see, the person essentially follows steps by steps, entering a keyword into the instruction, right? So enter this keyword, hit enter, and obtain certain responses back. And then in this particular animation, they are actually copying the responses back out from the simulated environment and putting it into perhaps a assessment sheet that they need to submit for homework. Okay. Now, what I want to do is introduce to you this environment. This is what a typical participant would see. You'll see a web browser, and a web browser, a particular tab would represent a particular computer that they are working in. All right, and that this box here in blue or in red, is that interactive session that they would have. All right, and this is a one-to-one, one student or one participant to one particular machine. All right. Next, we move on to the interactive session, and this is an example of a lab sheet in the interactive session. You could see it's fairly different. There's no steps to follow. But what we do is we provide a background of the environment or the scenario, if you will. Okay, in this particular case, the exercise is to provide incident response. Okay, incident response, if I may, think of incident response in the cybersecurity world as the SCDF medics that comes to your rescue should you get into an accident on the road. And those SCDF officers on their motorbikes, the medics on their motorbikes, are the first person on site to arrive at the scene and provide essential medical care. So in this particular case, incident response in the cybersecurity world is similar to that. We have got incident responders that are deployed in moments' notice within 4 hours usually, and we will be down at our customers' premises or in their network, and we will be assisting them with a particular cybersecurity incident that they may have had. Okay, so in this particular lab sheet, we will provide them with a particular objective, And we would even also provide them a pictorial view of what the simulated environment looks like. All right. And then obviously to the right, if there are computers that they need to get access to, we will give them the necessary information, right? We will tell them what the machine does. We will tell them the identity of that machine. And we will also tell them the login credentials for them to get access to that particular machine. And essentially, this is the interactive lab sheet. All right. With this objective that they have been given, they are supposed to go into the environment and perform activities, right? Incident response activities. So this is a blown up version of the picture that I showed in the lab sheet. As you can see, right? We simulate the internet, right? And I have highlighted the internet here in red, simply because in an interactive session, we also provide threat actors, or we provide people who pretend to be hackers in the internet environment, all right, on one end of our cyber range. Usually we put these people in a separate room, but they have access to the same network that you see here, okay? And we will put our training participants into the section over here in blue, all right? And this is the house, or this is the corporate network that they are actually to protect. And so you can think of it as red team people on the left attacking the environment on the right. And the blue team individuals, usually the participants who are there to learn to be incident responders or learn to protect a corporate network, they are protecting that particular network that you see on the screen. Okay, and then that becomes the role play exercise. The interactive sessions are usually real-time interactive. So what this means is that we would perform as threat actors or as acting as malicious individuals. We would be real-time interactively attacking the environment, okay? And the training participants would then, in turn, in real time, also react to the actions that have been performed by the hackers, right? The acting hackers or the actors, okay? This is an example of what the real-time interactive session screen may look like. I use the term may because what you see in front of you here is essentially a workstation. This is the workstation out here. This is my computer. And I, as an administrator or as an incident responder to the environment, am able to obtain a remote view, or in this particular case, the term being used commonly is remote desktop connection, or RDP. All right, we are able to get an RDP session to a remote computer that typically belongs to one of these computers. Sorry. So, for example, you could think of us as training participants that is on this particular machine, and I want to manage or administer an application server here or administer a database server over there. This is the scene, or this is the screen that one of those participants would see, okay? And that particular session, in turn, allows this user to go to yet another machine and perform more activities, okay? Now, let me just have a look, right? So what I would like to do is that in an interactive session, training is usually not just for one individual. Training is usually performed in a team, right? Whereby a team of individuals in the blue side actually have to work as a team to manage or secure this particular environment, just like the way they do in real life, right? In cybersecurity, nobody really works alone, right? They always work in teams. And so in this particular case, what we normally do is that we have training participants that are in administering the end user workstations. We have got network engineers that looks after the networks and the firewalls or the security individuals. We have got application individuals that look after the application servers, and we have got database administrators administering the databases. All right. So what's important is that when the tech is being performed, it is important to see how these individuals interact with one another to understand their own respective fields of expertise, but at the same time collectively function as a team to mitigate or protect this environment. All right, just like in any other corporate, there's no one prima donna that carries the whole organization through, so it's usually a team. Okay, so this is the screen, and let me just check for time. I've gone for about 15 minutes. So I have spent some time to explain to everybody here what the Cyber Range does and how we perform the training. And essentially, the training participants that we have are usually corporate working adults, but we are looking at seeing how we can actually include students, right? People who are still pursuing the academic qualifications. Okay. And but what you saw so far was essentially the sexy part of Cyber Range and cybersecurity training. And now I want to basically share with you the hard work that we have done and some of the constraints that I have met. And I believe these constraints and hard work may resonate with most of you who are actually educators in the education field, right? So there are three basic categories of hard work that I see in running the KPMG Cyber Range. First is the development of the curriculum, the lab sheets, and the instructions, right? These are what I call my teaching assets, right? These are my proprietary information that we create. We also then have got to develop the teaching assets, the content and scenarios. For example, the virtual machines. So if you think about those virtual machines that I flashed earlier on, they are machines that perform a particular role, but they don't just happen to have virtual machines like that. We actually had teams of individuals and my colleagues who actually design the machines, the functions and the applications for a particular training purposes to emphasize a particular topic. Okay, so as you can imagine, these virtual machines take time to build, and then we keep them in cold storage and we pull them out whenever we need to. All right, and of course, these virtual machines are just like any other, intellectual property. They diminish in value with time. So these virtual machines and these lab sheets and instructions need to be kept current virtually every year, maybe sometimes every 2 years, right? And we essentially have to look at what's new in the market or what's new in the cybersecurity world and what new attacks have come out, and we try and emulate and mimic these attacks and these scenarios in these virtual machines, and that's a lot of work. Okay. Next, we have also got the lab environment, right? The physical space, the virtual space that's required. So I've shown you the Cyber Range, but in reality, the Cyber Range also exists in the form of a physical room, a physical lab environment, okay? And that just like in any other lab, where some of you who are managing schools and administering to training courses in schools, just like the physics labs, the chemistry labs, and the biology labs, right? These labs have got activities that are performed before a particular lesson is conducted. And then after a lesson is conducted, there are also activities that needs to be carried out. For example, prepping the environment for, for an experiment, right? If it was a physics experiment, then all the appropriate gadgets, the markers, the timers, right, the measuring tapes needs to be set up. And then after the activity has been conducted, or the experiment has been conducted, the equipment needs to be cleaned up and kept. Right. So similarly, in the Cyber Range environment, all those also happen. And that in the lab environment, typically you would have teaching assistants or lab technicians, especially in the tertiary field, where as the topic gets more and more complicated, there are actually specialized roles that administer and manage these labs, right? The teaching assistants and the lab technicians, right? And last but not least, in order for the Cyber Range interactive session to occur, all right, what's unique to it in comparison to a chemistry lab or a physics lab is a sparring partner, the red team member or the blue team member, right? And that level of interactivity is what pits the training participants with the instructor, quote unquote, if you will. So the closest example I could say would be this. Some of us play sports, some of us play racket sports, and usually when you have got racket sports, you do need to play with somebody else on the other end of the court, right? And I'm sure some of you may have heard this. You typically like to play with somebody who is just a little bit better than you in terms of skill. So if it was a tennis player, you're a tennis player, the sparring partner or the tennis partner that you play with, hopefully is somebody who is a little bit better than you, so that when you are playing, you're learning from this tennis partner, right? So similarly in the cyber range, when we provide that training, if we are to provide, we are supposed to be training blue team members, then what we would do is we would provide red team members to spar with the blue team members, and we will make it difficult for them so that they will learn certain activities and certain points. Okay. Now, so these are essentially the hard work, and that we continue to strive and maintain all these aspects, the curriculum, the environment, as well as sparring partners, right, to provide such training for our training participants. I'm sure most of you who are teachers or educators can relate to the amount of work that goes into preparing all this just to provide that particular training session or classroom session that you would have with your students. Okay, so with that, I've pretty much come to the end of what I've prepared for sharing in terms of the cyber range and how KPMG uses the cyber range for training, and that we continue to do so with our clients and our customers. Okay, I believe there's a short question and answer session, but I'll leave it to the moderator for this session to do that.
Sure. Thank you very much to Terence for letting us know how KPMG Services is actually using the cyber range to provide realistic hands-on learning for cyber teams and how others can tap on this as well. We do have a couple of questions for the Q&A segment, so let's just take a look right now. So earlier on, you shared with us in your slides, there is a lot that goes on to planning for a cyber range, right? There's the planning for the content, there's the hardware, there's lab techs. We have audience who are curious, how much does it cost to set up a cyber range?
Right. So, we set up a cyber range for a school, for a higher learning institution, and they were looking at about 2 to 3 million Singapore dollars for a physical lab environment with the cyber range in it. And that's not including the operational aspects that their school would have got to maintain in terms of the curriculum and the environment. However, in today's world, with cloud technologies, that price point has come quite significantly down, and rather than spending on capital expenditure, it becomes an operational expense. Unfortunately, I do not have a quantum for that operational expense.
Right.
So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I think that's a good ballpark for people to have an idea. Also, they're curious to know, does this actually require like regular maintenance, or what are the sort of maintenance? Can it be done remotely? Does it have to be a very hardware kind of maintenance that goes on? Right.
So the hardware maintenance, yes, there are some aspects to it. There are some effort that needs to go into it. However, like I said, when you move things to the cloud, there's a little bit less of that. They for a education institution, they may want to engage lab technicians or IT administrators to administer that rather than pay an external vendor for that. However, I would like to share that that's just one part of the work. I feel that the majority of the effort lies in the curriculum and the lab sheets, right, and the lab management of it, right. So basically, the first 2 points that we have over on screen over here, the curriculum. Usually, I'd imagine it'd be the teachers and the educators that will manage these, and if they have a teaching assistant or lab technicians, then they will be managing the lab environment.
So earlier on as well, you mentioned that you've actually helped to set up a cyber range in a higher learning institute. Now that you've shared this idea of a cyber range, I think a lot of educators are very keen to have this for their students as well. So we have a question over here: is these cyber range labs actually suitable for secondary school students? And if possible, how can teachers make use of such resources?
Right. So that's a very, very good question. I guess I'm quite passionate about that topic. Perhaps let me share what I've observed, and then let me share what I think can be done. Thus far, I've observed that this kind of training, this kind of interaction, it's kind of like has been reserved, rightly or wrongly, for individuals who have completed their formal education, and that they are going into the workforce and they are learning new skills, all right, and they are interacting with teams and individual and other individuals, and that individuals who are in schools and maybe even in secondary schools, right, they have been using one-on-one instructional lab sessions, just like the way I've explained earlier. So the interactive sessions are the ones that are very valuable. The instructional lab sessions are valuable nonetheless, but they lack that interactivity. And this is what I have seen happen over the last few years. Now, can we bring this interactive session to the secondary school level? Perhaps we could. We do need to think about whether it is a topic that we want the students to specialize in at that level. I've got to say, there are lots of technical foundation topics that one individual should know before they go into the interactive lab sessions.
So I think that also links to another question that we see over here. Do the participants require IT background knowledge, or what is the level of IT knowledge that they require before they can actually participate in such a cyber range?
Right. The short answer is yes, they should. They should have some IT background. The more IT background you have, the more interesting the interactive session becomes. So just like I shared that when we perform such training, and we perform training for working adults, right, who have been working for a good number of years, some of them 2-3 years, some of them 5, and some of them 10 even, or 15 years. And we develop such training environments for such individuals. The topics shared, the scenarios played, the learnings from one another is very, 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 very valuable, right? But this also means that these individuals have got X number of years of expertise behind them, right? So when you bring the fresh graduates or perhaps even students to perform such training into such training environments, you are essentially teaching them how to walk. And so yes, they can participate. We do need to par down the topics and the level of interaction so that they pick up on the fundamentals. But I strongly believe cybersecurity is a topic where you may not be able to pick up cybersecurity related specialization if you do not understand the fundamentals of information technology, if you do not understand the fundamentals of systems, networks, applications.
All right, and with that, that's all the time that we have for question and answer. But thank you for introducing us to the world of the Cyber Range Labs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Terence.